Our next speaker is Jay Randolph. He is a certified golf course superintendent, and he's with Sebastian County Parks. I will let him introduce himself. Jay?
Great, thank you. I'd like to thank the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership for asking me to talk today. I'll be talking about our Massard Prairie Restoration work that we've been doing at Geren Golf Course and Geren Park here in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And this really isn't a how-to presentation of how we've done it and all that. That's a whole nother presentation sometime. This is more of a just summary of how we started and what we've done, and more that golf courses can be a part of the conservation answer, and part of the ability to put native plants in areas maybe folks haven't thought of to do it that way. So this is part of our restoration work. This slide shows a portion of the golf course that's on the silo golf course because of the big silo up there. But this restoration area here is about 2.5, maybe 3 years old. And all of our restoration areas that we've done were either Bermuda grass or tall fescue in the beginning. And we started this project when I came on with Sebastian County. And we weren't real sure what we were wanting to do with natural areas. We were wanting to take maintained turf out and put in some type of natural areas. And we weren't real sure what that was going to be or look like. And doing our research, we realized that Geren Park and the golf course were once part of a larger prairie called Massard Prairie. And so it was a no-brainer that we would go back in with a tall grass prairie natives. And so that's where we started. And then it was like, okay, well, where are we going to get these plants from? And we didn't know anything back then of where to get them from. So we reached out to a seed business in Missouri. And I think in the beginning, maybe got an acre or a half acre of tallgrass prairie seed from them, and quickly realized that it was going to be way too expensive to put in 80 acres. That's what we had planned on in the beginning of seed, to buy them through a seed dealer. So then we started looking at other avenues, and we looked at NRCS and their EQIP program. And that's a very competitive program that they have, and there was no guarantee at the end that we would have been granted help from them. So then we started looking into the Arkansas Game and Fish, their Acres for Wildlife program, which is a great program. And I know a lot of people are onto it now, and that's a great thing. But anyway, we got on with them. I think the first year was maybe 8 acres or 10 acres or something like that. And again, this is back in 2016. So we got that grant. We started with that, and about the middle of or late 2016, we started researching and realized that there was some virgin pieces of Massard Prairie and other prairies in the river valley. And we reached out to the private landowners of those prairies and got permission to harvest the local native seed. And since then, that's what we've been doing. And when we take out an area for restoration, we've been using that native seed. And in this slide, you can see here that this is kind of how we get started. We use prescribed burns a lot in our management plan of taking areas out, Bermuda grass again, tall fescue out, and putting in natives. In the initial phases, we use herbicide. And I wish that was something that we couldn't do, but there's no way that you could take out the scale of Bermuda grass and tall fescue that we're looking at on our properties and not use herbicide. And you can kind of see on the right-hand side there, the Massard Prairie Reestablishment Area picture. That's after a burn. The burn was in late December, early January. This would have been late March, roughly, when this picture was taken. And you can see the green in the background and in the foreground, and that's tall fescue. And by burning, we can come back, especially on the tall fescues. We don't do it so much on the Bermuda grass, but on the tall fescue, we can come back in and put a herbicide out in those areas and really see them. The warm season grasses are in dormancy, so it's not hurting them at all. So we can take those out, and then we can do seeding the next year and go on with that. And like I said, some of these areas we burn every year, but we don't burn all our areas every year. We only burn generally a third to keep some refuge for the animals and insects that may be laying eggs or using those plants in the wintertime, or those areas in the wintertime to hide in. So over time, when we plant, this is kind of what we get into. It's really blurs where native areas stop and where golf courses begin, or vice versa. The area in back of this golf green there, where the sand is on that back slope there, that used to be all Bermuda grass. And we've taken it out, obviously, and put in native. So it's a great area. It really gets our golfers up close to these native areas. They ask a lot of questions. They see a lot of things. We get a lot of comments about bobwhite quail. They hear them out there in the mating season. They see them running on the edges of these areas. And that's the beauty of this is we get over 30,000 golfers a year that come out to play the golf course. So that's 30,000 eyes that we can get on our native areas. And it really has started a lot of people that have seen these areas on the golf course reach out to Game and Fish, private landowners in Sebastian County to try to get some of these areas with them. But we didn't want to put these areas just all over the place willy-nilly, because golfers, for one thing, don't have an idea where their ball's going to go. So we knew that we had to put these areas in pretty much out of play areas, because we didn't want the golfers in these areas. We surely didn't want their golf carts in these areas. So, but we also wanted these areas to tie into each other and be as less fragmented as possible. And we wanted to combine areas to make large areas. And we really wanted a mosaic that wildlife and seed could get through areas a lot easier. So this is an older map. This was back in 2018. And we've done, I think, close to 100 acres now on the golf course. And we've actually spread out inside of Geren Park. Geren Park is 1,300 acres. So we've spread out with native areas inside that park and with other parks in Sebastian County that we manage putting natives in. So that kind of gives you an idea. And I would recommend this if you're joining and you're from a city or another park or another golf course, to really think about where these areas are going to be and how they're going to affect the future, what may be done in those areas recreation wise or whatever. And just put them in the right spot, because you're going to put a lot of time and effort putting these areas in, and you sure don't want to be in the wrong spot that you've got to come back and take them out. I put this in. This is where we kind of found and how we found these native prairies that were next to us. And this is the original survey map. And you can find these maps on the Bureau of Land Management on their website. They're GLO maps. Again, they're original survey maps. This is actually from Northwest Arkansas. And you can see that the surveyors had put delineated in green where these prairies were. And so we would look at maps like that in our area, and we would put those on a current Google map to get an idea of where these areas were. And this is in Northwest Arkansas, and so was this survey map. I've taken a couple points from that. In the small one that's in the upper right corner, if you pan in more on that is, you can see there's a golf course there, and that is actually Springdale Country Club. So if Springdale Country Club, or if you were a city park or you were a private landowner, you could go through the same kind of process to see, one, if you think maybe from great grandpa telling you that there used to be a prairie on your land or around you, you could go back through there and see if there really was. In Springdale Country Club's point here, they're like we are. If they wanted to reestablish a prairie or prairie plants, then they could easily do that because that's where they once existed. So that's something that, again, how we found these local virgin prairies and got permission from the landowners to harvest that native seed. So once these restoration areas get mature, they turn into habitat, and that's really where it gets fun and interesting. You start seeing a lot of really neat plants that are becoming established. You start seeing these insects and animals that come in that are very exciting. On the screen here, I have in the top middle the rattlesnake master borer moth. In the bottom, the Bell's roadside skipper. To the bottom right, we have our state butterfly, the Diana fritillary. And these are all butterflies that have come in since our establishment has become a little more mature. The rattlesnake borer moth and the Bell's roadside skipper are becoming more and more endangered because of habitat loss. We really hadn't had the Diana fritillary the first couple of years of our restoration, and eventually it came in, which tells us that it's working. On the bottom left is the National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative's Bobwhite Almanac. They put this out at the end of each year. They had done an article on what we were doing on the golf course, and why I'm mentioning that today is they were interested in all they represent 25 states, and you can see it here in the lower left. And of those 25 states, there's 9,600 golf courses. And I should mention that the National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative, they work with state conservation groups, they work with state wildlife agencies, they work with universities, trying to increase habitat in these 25 states that they represent that benefits bobwhite quail, but those also benefit many other animals and many other plants. So in those 25 states, again, there was roughly 9,600 golf courses. The average 18-hole golf course is 150 acres in size. So that equates to 1.44 million acres of golf courses in those 25 states. 17.2%, according to a 2015 survey through the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, 17.2% is some type of natural area. That may be a forest setting, it may be a grassland type of a setting, some type of natural habitat. A lot of those were considered tall fescue, which really isn't a natural habitat, but it looks natural. So anyway, you take that 17.2% of 1.44 million, you have close to 250,000 acres of possible habitat on golf courses, which is a major deal. In the top of this slide, Audubon International, which works with golf courses for conservation and to putting in habitat. They have a program called Monarchs in the Rough, which is also part of the Monarch joint venture, like the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership is. And Monarchs in the Rough has worked with 736 golf courses across the United States right now, and they put in a little over 1,000 acres of habitat on those golf courses. So that's a very positive thing. In fact, I think Audubon International is now working with park systems, city parks and state parks, of doing kind of the same thing, of providing native seed for those projects. We also have worked with schools in the very beginning. We want to get them out and show them how important these native ecosystems are. We work with FFA groups. We also work with the University of Arkansas Fort Smith and Arkansas State University, which they've got a really cool project going on right now. And what we've started doing is, again, because Geren golf course was once on a prairie, got developed into a golf course, we're taking soil samples on Bermuda grass fairways, 1, 2, 3 year restoration areas, and they're comparing those soil samples, the microbiomes, to the virgin prairies that are still in our areas. And they've got a group of students that comes out and takes the soil samples. They have a group that comes and does the analyzing, the soil testing, and then they have a group that goes out to these competitions and have these abstract competitions that you see in the lower right there. But after the last couple of years of doing this, they're really starting to see some really cool results that are showing that these virgin prairies have some things in the soil that are completely different than what 1, 2, 3 year restorations and just Bermuda grass fairways do. So we're hoping in the future that we can pinpoint what those are, how we can possibly put those in to new restorations that may help those restorations succeed better. And from the very beginning, we've had these partners, and some of these partners we're still deeply involved with, but all these folks, that's why we've had success, because we reached out to them in the very beginning. And for those of you that are listening today, for one, congratulations on being part of this. Hopefully, after all the great presentations you've already heard and those to come, you can pull out some of these and get information. And even if you aren't doing some type of restoration work or putting habitat in, at least you'll know some of these folks and ways to do things that if you're in conversation on the weekend with one of your friends or whoever, you can turn them on to this, and you can point them in the right direction where they can have success. But these folks, we wouldn't have been able to make a single step without these folks helping us out and being involved with them. So that's a positive thing. The Arkansas Forestry Commission, we work with them with our prescribed burns. Like I said earlier, that's our biggest management tool that we use in our restorations. And what you see here is actually our local rural fire departments, and we get them involved. They need training. They need help on all that, on how to battle grassland fires and other things. So it's a win-win for them also. So this project has really been a community project with those agencies around us. As I said earlier, we wouldn't have the success we've had if it wasn't for all our partners. We've been involved with the Arkansas Native Project. This is through Audubon, Arkansas. The last couple of years, the native seed that we've harvested from our virgin prairies around has gotten mature enough now the last couple of years that we actually can get seed from them. So we've given that project seed. I'd like to give, there's so many people that have worked on these things, and this isn't a new project. They're really going strong with this. Again, where they get this native seed, Arkansas Master Naturalists have helped, and many others have helped collect seed for them. They get the seed, they send it off, it gets cleaned, it comes back, and folks farm these out and get the seed again and sell it. It's a very positive thing. Jennifer Ogle, who I think talked earlier, or maybe she talks tomorrow, she was head of the Arkansas Native Seed Program the last couple of years. Did some real positive work. She worked real hard on getting that thing going. As I said in the beginning of the presentation, I wish that would have been established when we started, because it's just going to be a great way to get Arkansas native seed that we don't have to bring other native seed in from Oklahoma or Arkansas or Missouri or Kansas that maybe doesn't fit a certain ecoregion. So kudos to them, kudos to Jennifer and all the others that have worked hard, the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission, on getting that thing going. That's a great project and something that we've needed for a long time. The Arkansas Game and Fish Commission was involved with that as well. We try to bring a lot of folks out to see our prairies, restoration areas. Geren Park is just right in the middle of town. I mean, we've got houses all around us and develop all around us. So, we try to get people out there to let them see what's right, literally, in their backyard. Lori Spencer, the Arkansas butterfly lady, she's come out the last couple of years and had butterfly walks, which are awesome. It's just such a beautiful thing having her out there, and people just get such a big kick out of it. We try to get tours that we give several times a year, again, to let people see that golf courses are part of the conservation answer, and that there's beautiful things that can happen on golf courses other than, knocking your ball in the water. So very positive things there. We had this going on last summer. We co-opted with Bedford Camera and our Fort Smith Public Library system. And Bedford Camera knew of 10 to 15 photographers locally, landscape photographers, and we got with them. They came out last summer, May through August, and took pictures of anything they wanted to on our restoration areas. And in September and October, we had a presentation or an exhibition that was in the main Fort Smith Library in their largest meeting room, where they had lots of meetings. So anyway, we had a poster that kind of explained what the exhibition was, and then all these beautiful photographs that the photographers had taken. So it was just a great way, again, to involve the community, to let them know that they have this beautiful tall grass prairie in their backyard that they can visit anytime and any time of the year and see the changes in that. So that was a real positive thing, and I recommend that for any agency or city to get started in on that. And in conclusion, I'd just like to say again, this has been a wonderful experiment that worked for us in Sebastian County, for our Sebastian County parks. And we're actually just recently, in the last couple months, have reached out to a couple of small towns next to Fort Smith that wanted to do something similar in their small parks. So we're working with them on trying to help them establish some natives in their parks, and this is just growing. It's not a trend anymore. Like I mentioned earlier, there's been agencies and people that have been working hard on this for a long time, and it's a real deal. And again, if you're joining in today, pat yourself on the back for taking the time to do this. Even if you don't start something like this in your backyard or somebody you work for, at least you can have the knowledge to extend that on to someone else that may do it. So with that, that's kind of all I have, and I'll turn it back over to Leslie for any questions. Thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jay. It never gets old hearing about all the great work that you're doing, and the comments say the same thing. Everyone's saying that the work that you do is so impressive, and they're so excited to learn about what's going on in Arkansas. So someone has a question to ask if you have tried tried soil solarization instead of herbicide application, or is it not practical on the scale that you're working with?
Yeah, there are some folks that have tried that. Jeremy with our local Sebastian County Conservation District here in Fort Smith, they work on a little smaller scale, and he's had success with that, and they've had success with that. And but yeah, on our scale, I think the smallest area that we've done that we put in some was maybe a half acre, and everything else has been larger than that. And yeah, I wish that we could use that or use some other process to get it out, but especially with Bermuda grass, it's just very difficult. But yeah, I on small scales we would try that for sure, and I would recommend other people on small scales to try the what she had mentioned.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. So you mentioned that Ben Geren is kind of right in the middle of town and that you use prescribed fire frequently. So what are some of the challenges and what's the general feedback that you get for, kind of smoke management or fire in general?
Yeah, so it is. The wind's got to be going out of a certain direction. Or we can't burn. It's got to be coming in from the northwest, or we just can't do it. And that actually puts the smoke out into Fort Chaffee on one end of us. But again, thank God Ben Geren Park is large, because part of that stream that smoke's going in towards Fort Chaffee is still in Ben Geren Park. But we do have challenges with smoke. Like I said, it's got to be coming from one direction. And secondly, since we're a county park in the middle of the city, and if we weren't county, I think that it would be a little more difficult to get permits to burn, or we would certainly go on a smaller scale. As I said earlier, generally we're burning 35 to 45, upwards of 50 acres. It does, you know, have some challenges with it. But one challenge that it's not is having, you know, nice fire lines, because as you can see in this picture, you know, I've got a golf course all the way around that native habitat. So if anything, we could just turn on the sprinklers in the fairway and to put out a fire if it escaped. Or a lot of times it's, you know, on a cart path or a creek or other things that run next to it. But there are challenges, but it's worked out beautifully so well. And again, thanks to Arkansas Forestry Commission and our rural fire departments with their help on all that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Love to see prescribed fire being used in all settings. Another question that was asked, do you inoculate the restoration prairies with microbiology from the virgin prairie sites? I'm assuming that they're talking about soil microbes, excuse me.
Yeah. No, we haven't, but that's something that the research may be going in that direction, and specifically mycorrhizae. And a lot of those native plants depend on that. And there's a lot of research going on right now in Kansas State and somewhere where the University of Arkansas Fort Smith and Arkansas State University may over time or may not lean that direction to look at things like that too. But there are inoculum that you can buy that's from prairies in Kansas or Missouri, I think maybe into Indiana as well, that you could put in your cedar when you're putting the seed out to help get the good stuff in the soil to help with those establishments. But we have had a couple of virgin prairie areas that we collect seed that have been sold. And I forgot to mention that all the areas of virgin Massard Prairie that we currently get seed off of have for sale signs on them. So that's a sad deal. But hopefully somebody that wants to preserve them will come around and buy them. But anyway, one of those parcels that we were getting seed off of a couple of years ago, it did get sold, and we got permission to go in there and dig up a lot of plants. And we did dig up a lot of plants. And I'm sure some of that soil had the good stuff in it that may be moved a little bit. But there are studies that show that inoculum helps. And like I said, there's a lot of research work going on it right now. So that's something that if some type of inoculum with Arkansas soils comes along and someone makes that, then I think that would be a great tool for anybody's restoration, including ours.
Great answer, Jay. And also, I know that the Missouri Prairie Foundation recently had a speaker that talked about soil microbiology. So I'd really encourage people to look into that. So we're getting close to time, and I don't see any additional questions coming in. But thank you so much, Jay. It's such a great topic to talk about, and I know that you really put your heart into your work, and this passion project is really making moves, and I think it really inspires a lot of people across the state.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to talk, and thanks again for asking me. I appreciate it.